Listen, okay, the purpose of this project is purely and entirely due to the fact that I need a sheath holster to store my shears like a badass whilst I'm draping, and not at all because I keep finding new costume details to be completely obsessed with in the Wheel of Time. So, who's up for a bit of leather work? But first, I must take a brief minute to tell you about soap. Particularly that of Blueland, purveyors of hand soap and surface cleaning products, and who are very kindly sponsoring this video. Blueland are heavily focused on sustainability and reusability. Unlike lots of household soaps and cleaners which are sold in single-use plastic containers, Blueland comes in tablet form, eliminating the need to constantly throw away plastic. I got the hand soap duo, which comes with 2 reusable glass dispenser bottles and 12 deliciously scented refill tablets that dissolve and are ready to use in minutes. I've been using these products in my studio for several months now and have been really loving them. They leave my hands feeling clean, especially for the more, messy tasks that come about, such as handling black leather dyes. Blueland's products are EPA certified, are all vegan and cruelty-free, and are made without ammonia, VOC, soy and nut, chlorine bleach, and parabens. And bonus time, all products and packaging are made without single-use plastics, with tablet wrappers being compostable. Click my link below to get 20% off your first kit with shipping to the UK, US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. I have just done a very quick mock-up of the belt thing, just using a little bit of 1-inch ribbon that I had in my stash, just to get a sense of how this works, what the proportions of things are, how it looks on a body, but also primarily so that I could take measurements so that I could figure out how much leather I need to do this. It's super, super simple. It's just start at the waist on one side, wraps around, drops down to the hip, and then it looks like, from what I can see on the scarce images that we have of this, especially of the back of this, there's another strip that sort of just comes up and pins to the back here, and there's a buckle in the back. And then of course, all the decoration, all the stamping work that goes on the actual belt. I'm gonna also attach another larger pouch, so that will also help to conceal this bit here. And then, I mean, I could just wear this out instead of having to carry a purse. It's like if I'm wearing a garment with no pockets, here are your pockets. I love this thing so much, like an unreasonable amount. I've managed to find some off-cut strips of this nice, thick, vegetable tanned leather on Etsy, which will be ideal for stamping. The first step is to prepare the edges so that they're nice and neat, first by beveling or trimming off the outer edges just to round things out a bit. Next, the edges are burnished to smooth them down into a nice hard edge. And the edge is then sealed off with some beeswax. Wetting the leather makes it a bit easier to work with and more receptive, I guess, to engraving. Before I start the stamping pattern though, I'm just marking some lines. The two at the edge will be permanent and so are made deeply, but the one in the center is just a guiding line to help with the future stamping. This, whatever this tool is called, is not designed for this purpose. It's meant to carve lines into the leather for stitching, but I didn't actually want to carve into the leather, just to indent it a little bit, and I don't have a proper wing divider to do that, so I got creative. It got the job done. Now it's time for lots and lots of stamp work. I've done my best to choose some stamps that vaguely reflect the pattern used on the original belt, starting with the row of these large circular shapes down the center. Each edge then gets a row of these peaked shapes. I have 2 individual strips of stamped leather at this point, and I'm just going in and adding a belt buckle to the end of this one. This buckle is a reproduction of a Viking find that I found on Etsy. I love looking for unique materials from independent craftspeople whenever I can. I just think it adds something so special to a garment, or in this case, a belt thing, that you can't really get through standardized manufacture. The other side, which I've left a bit longer for the tie end, gets a series of eyelets punched in to accommodate the buckle. I know standard belts nowadays have a little loop strip behind the buckle to hold the tie end flat, but I've decided to go a bit medieval with the style on this one and plan to tie the end of the belt in place instead, so I've added a bit more length to the end. I've put this on my dress form to work out the placement of the overlap at the front and the angle at which I would like the straps to fall at the sides. Since I'll be dyeing this black later anyway, I can get away with marking these points in ink. This front point is connected with a rivet to allow it a bit of flexibility, and it is only after doing this that I realized I probably should have dyed everything first. So let's take a moment to do that. To the main feature of this project, I will be attaching this small belt pouch I have lying around on one side, and of course this leather sheath for scissors onto the other. Both of these I believe were purchased at some point from craftsfolk on Etsy, again, and the sheath is just an 8-inch knife sheath, which will double nicely for scissor purposes. For purely aesthetic reasons, I'm first just dyeing all the brown bits on these to black to match the rest of the belt. I'm also just trimming down each side of the front straps to the correct length. Ignore the angle at which I make this cut, it needs to be a square cut rather than an angular cut, which I fixed later. And of course, making up the short straps that will connect to the back. These are prepared in exactly the same way as the long front straps, beveling, burnishing, waxing, marking, and stamping into the next eternity. Now that everything is properly dyed, all that's left is to attach the back straps. I've skived down some of the thickness on either end of these back strap pieces so the overlap won't be quite so bulky. These are then riveted at a right angle to the ends of the long straps. Here is where we are. What I've decided to do is, I'm not entirely sure how the original belt is constructed. I know for a fact there's a rivet at the front here. I just made this up, riveting this here, but I did this instead of stitching it because if this is on a hinge effectively, it does have mobility, which is nice because you can decide at what angle you want to wear this, whether you want it to be a smaller cross or a deeper cross and cover more of the hips, or I guess it depends on what length of pouch you have chosen at the side here, but also with having the rivet here, you can choose the angle at which this connects up to here. I'm going to have to put the pouches on before I connect this though. The sheath ties on, so that's not really an issue, but the pouch has got a little loop on the back of it. I'm probably also going to rivet this strap end to here as well, just so that, again, the whole thing just has mobility. I'm not an expert in leather belt harness making, but I imagine with something with this many connective bits, it's just going to be easier to have as much flexibility as I possibly can in this. Before riveting the straps back up to the back of the belt, I'm first sliding the side pouch into place and tying on the scissor sheath. These are then secured to the lower junction with a couple of stitches. Lo and behold, I am now in possession of a completed belt. This just might be my favorite thing I have ever made. It is so functional and practical and only took about 2 days to complete. Very much a respite from my often 100+ hours spent on my usual sewing projects. This also entirely fulfills its intended primary function of making me feel like a supreme badass whilst I'm working. I have every intention of wearing this pretty much daily in the workroom and will probably continue to adapt the pouch situation as necessity necessitates. And on that note, I think it is time to get back to some sewing. So I shall see you back here anon.